Hey, I am sitting here today with Jason Wisdom. You may recognize this guy if you listen to music like Coming the Archetype.
Yep.
Hey, that's on your shirt. Or the new band, the Death Therapy, which is right back there. I'm going to be talking to him today on Apologetics, on Tofer's Take. So Jason, what do most Christians think when they hear the word apologetics?
Oh, that's a good question. I think most people, when they hear the word apologetics, unfortunately, have a negative connotation. They think, I think that's something for like people with like 4 PhDs and brains they're too big for common sense kind of thing. So I've suggested many times to people that we probably need to do away with that word and start explaining to people what we mean by it. So instead of saying apologetics is important, say it's important to defend our faith, or it's important to give reasons for why we believe what we believe. Because apologetics just sounds real, I don't know, it sounds too high and lofty, I think, for most people.
Okay. So is there a connection between defending our faith and witnessing?
Yeah, I think, I can't give you the exact quote, but I know Tim Keller has a good quote that I've held on to for a while, where he talks about how there was a time in America, at least, which is the only place I've ever lived, where there was a time probably 30 years ago, where for the most part Christianity sort of at least felt true to most people. To most people it was kind of like, even if you weren't a Christian, it kind of felt like you could just witness to people and they weren't going to like smash you into the ground and say, no, this isn't true, it's a joke, it's all a fairy tale. But here we are 30 years later, and people have heard the what over and over and over again. They've heard you need Jesus, they've heard you need to read the Bible, they've heard the what, but they have never got the answers to the why. And so I think as we share our faith with people, we're increasingly in a secularized kind of country where we need to be able to answer the why questions. If somebody says, if you go up to somebody now and just say, Jesus loves you, or you need Jesus, well, chances are they've heard that before, and they've got some reason why they've already rejected that. So you need to ask, sort of probe deeper and deal with the why questions.
So with that in mind, would you say learning how to defend the faith would be more beneficial to the believer or the non-believer?
There certainly are stories of people, famous stories of maybe someone like C.S. Lewis or Lee Strobel in more modern times, more recently, who have been atheists who've looked into the evidence for Christianity or the Gospels and studied it for themselves and have come to faith in Christ. So I think that's, it's important for all people to seek the truth. I believe all truth is God's truth. So apologetic truth is going to ultimately glory to God. But I would say, for the most part, I think more believers need to get involved in the discipline of defending the faith, because I feel like in an increasingly secularized culture, we're starting to look more and more like a fringe cult group, telling people to believe in flying unicorns or something, as opposed to, hey, we believe in the God of all creation, the one from whom everything comes, who sent his son, who really died on the cross, who really rose again, which is much more concrete than this sort of like, hippie Jesus billboard kind of faith that a lot of people are.
So there's different areas in apologetics, branching from like scientific or logical. Where do you feel that? Where do you see yourself being applied to?
There's all sorts of. There's philosophical apologetics, there's scientific apologetics, there's biblical apologetics, there's and even within all of those, there's different ways of approaching every kind of question. For the most part, I find myself really drawn to answering tough questions. So I'm not a biologist. I can't get into all of the details on something like scientific, like evolution and creation. I'm not up to snuff on all that because I'm not a biologist. But I do know that I've wrestled with a lot of skeptical questions that I have, and I think sometimes people have the impression that if you're a Christian, especially if you're in your 30s and you're still a Christian, or older and you're still a Christian, well, then you just must be somebody who doesn't like to ask questions, or doesn't like to, you just accept it. Well, I'm not that way. I'm always questioning things. I'm always asking questions. I'm always struggling with them. And I remain a Christian because I'm convinced that it's true, not because I'm trying to block out those things. So the thing I like to focus on in apologetics personally is the kind of difficult questions, existential questions of, why does God allow evil, or what, is the Bible really true? The tough questions that people ask, those kind of things.
Now, being involved in the metal scene, you've probably had a couple people ask you those tough questions. Has learning all this helped in your conversations after the show with people?
I think some of it has. After the show it's hard to narrow it down to that, because concerts are loud. Everybody's bustling around. Everybody wants to get merchandise. It's hard to have a very deep conversation there. But definitely, going back to people's houses and staying the night, or talking in the van, or talking online, even things like that. Yeah, I think it's really. I wouldn't say that the information is as important as just the conversation. So what I mean by that is, as much as I've studied apologetics and answers to different questions, the thing that's been the most valuable to me in that study has been just learning how to have good conversations with people who don't agree with you on everything.
Yeah.
Which is something that I think a lot of believers are afraid of. They're afraid, well, what if I talk to this person who doesn't believe what I believe? Are they going to stump me? Am I going to look stupid? Are they going to? And the reality is, you don't have to hit a home run every time. You just need to get up to bat, is the way I heard somebody say it. Be open and start to just be real with people. If it's a tough question, say, yeah, it's a tough question. I don't know. And I think if enough Christians do that, then all of a sudden Christianity becomes a thing where, hey, we're interested in the truth, not just fairy tales. We struggle with stuff too, but Jesus.
So, what do you think the relationship between faith and facts is? Do we have faith in the facts, or do we have faith because of the facts?
That's a good one. The New Testament connotation for the word faith is the word that's translated faith most commonly is the Greek word pistis, P-I-S-T-I-S, and it basically has the general meaning of to be convinced, persuaded of the truth of something. And so I think the best way to look at it is faith is not something that is like the opposite, like polar opposite of reason or facts. It's not like you have facts over here and faith over here, and then whenever facts go down, you just have to have more faith. That's the way the world thinks about it right now. People will say, well, if I had facts, then I wouldn't have to have faith. I would just say, well, I know that. But since I don't have facts, I have to have faith. And they kind of put those two on opposite ends of a scale. I don't think it works that way. I think there's a marriage between faith and reason. We use our reason in order to look at the facts and look at everything, but then we exercise faith as an act of trust based on what we do see. We exercise trust for what we don't see. So it's sort of like jumping out of an airplane going skydiving or something. You typically are not jumping out with no good reason to think that you could survive, or no good reason to think the guy who packed your parachute knows what he's doing. You typically have looked at those things, you've thought about them, but you do still have to have a moment of trust where you step out of the plane. So it doesn't do away with faith to say, I've looked at the evidence and I believe Christianity is true. That's what some people say. They say, well, then there's no room for faith. And I'm like, no, because at some point you still have to go, I don't know all the answers. Can't see God. He's a spirit. I've never died and come back. I wasn't there when Jesus walked the earth physically. But everything I do see, I exercise faith and trust Him.
Okay, so could you suggest some reading or authors on the topic?
Of apologetics, just broadly? Yeah, I would definitely recommend Dr. William Lane Craig. ReasonableFaith.org is where he has most of his resources. Someone like J. Warner Wallace is very accessible to, and his books are really exciting to read. He's a homicide detective, a former homicide detective who applies everything he learned in studying cold case homicides to studying there, but I think the most important thing is that people just start to open up and not be afraid to answer or to ask the questions, and that Christians in the church make it a safe place for especially young people to be able to ask the questions. Because I think a lot of the problem with young people leaving the church now, because it's an epidemic, I think a lot of it comes from the fact that they didn't feel comfortable asking the questions. They didn't feel like they could go to their youth pastor and say, hey, I'm not sure I believe this or that, or hey, you know, my friend says that, you know, God is this, this, and this. They're afraid to say that because they're afraid the pastor's going to look at them and say, oh, well, just don't think about that. You just need to have faith, or the pastor's going to think that they're a bad Christian or a bad person. And I think that's very detrimental. I mean, certainly if you read through the Psalms that David wrote, David was questioning and shaking his fist at the heavens all the time, it seems like. But God's big enough to handle that.
So, how did you personally develop such a passion for apologetics?
A lot of it has to do with just seeing a lot of my friends, whether they be people in the music industry or friends I went to high school with or youth group with or whatever, who have walked away from the faith. And, you know, in sort of a selfish way, I mean, I don't want to be wrong. I'm a person who likes to be right. I think we all do. So if I got a lot of friends, a lot of close friends, and people who are walking away from Christianity, that makes me stop and go, okay, hold on a second. Like, if I'm still believing this, am I right? You know, and if they're wrong, it's one of those things where, you know, a lot of people don't think of Christianity that way. They don't think of it as right and wrong. They think of it as it's true for you, not true for me. You believe in this, you believe in that, like vanilla ice cream versus chocolate ice cream. But the reality is, Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15, if Jesus didn't rise from the dead, like meaning if it didn't really happen, then Christianity is worthless. But the flip side of that is if it did really happen, then Christianity is everything. And it's not a matter of do you believe it, do I believe it, it will be true for you. And that's what C.S. Lewis said, and I'll butcher the quote, but he said Christianity, if it's false, is worth absolutely nothing. But if it's true, it means everything. But the one thing it can't be is just sort of moderately important. Because if it's moderately important, you obviously haven't considered the ramifications of the fact that God came in flesh, died and rose again, and offers salvation to all who trust in Him.
Now this last one might be a little bit more theological. Can apologetics be applied to dispelling false teaching?
Yeah, I think actually one of the biggest tasks of apologetics is in clarifying. Apologetics and philosophy are very tied to each other, and one of the major aspects of philosophy is in clarifying things. So a lot of apologetics actually will not just be like to defend against, like say, an atheist or an agnostic, or to answer a question from a skeptical person, but would also be to, you know, help clarify the person over here who's a believer has gone off the rails somewhere. Well, how can we help them reason, see the truth of that matter? So apologetics, I think, is very broad, and unfortunately, again, if the word gets a bad rap, apologetics, it sounds so, fancy. Or it's the same with theology. You say, oh, theological, and people start rolling their eyes back in their head. But what we really need to do is just start saying, why do we believe what we believe, and what's true?
Okay.
Yeah.
Jason, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
And hopefully we'll